Speech number 3. This is my outline. So imagine, it's a new morning, you wake up, hit that good little stretch, shake it out, rub your eyes, brush your teeth, go to the bathroom, shower, whatever you need to do. But even before that, right after that stretch, you roll over, grab your phone, and immediately, first thing you see are those people's highlight reels. Not just celebrities, not just athletes, regular everyday people, your acquaintances, your compatriots, your friends. And that's the immediate content that is circling in front of your eyes. That's all around you. That immediately floods your brain. Now put yourself into the shoes of a teenage kid, an adolescent, between the age of 13 and 17. And think about how impressionable you were at that age. And think about your peers. At that time in your life, you're probably the most influenceable, if that makes sense. It's so easy for you to be swayed one way or another because it's a very vulnerable part of your life. You're trying to figure out who you are as a person, and a lot of that has to do with the environment that you're in. And feeding yourself with that sort of information could be good or bad. Now, in the beginning, social media was initially designed as a way to connect family, friends, coworkers, people for job opportunities, that sort of thing. Now, as we move into the future, it's more about shaping people's self-image. And that has led to rising anxiety, depression, and suicide rates because of the comparison between people sitting on their phone and the person on the other side of that screen. And with that, I propose a serious consideration into government intervention in terms of social media censoring and control from the federal government to ensure the health and safety of especially adolescents and youth. So kind of the first thing I want to talk about is the impact, right? So first point, social media is built for addiction. And that's not me being an old head or complaining. I personally am a user of social media. I'd argue it takes up quite a fair bit amount of my time, but it can be good. But in the Surgeon General's advisory released in 2023 by Surgeon General Vivek Murthy, they found that 95% of teens are users of social media, and 1 in 3 are constantly on social media. That accounts for 24 million people in that first statistic within that age demographic, and then another 8.3 million users who say that they're constantly on it. And if you think about it, that's a large portion of our society that is then moving into the workforce who are incredibly impressionable and likely have poor self-image issues. And it's not just a correlation between teens desiring a social media outlet. Another factor that has also been found is that sometimes poor relationships with others, whether that be friendships or parents or other familial relationships, can push individuals towards social media in a negative way to where it fills a gap that they would normally have with normal relationships. And it fills an emotional void and is further corroborated by the fact that they can find community with people who have also suffered those same issues. And because it fills a gap in their life, it creates an addictive process that cycles and can sometimes go out of control, on top of regular individuals who may be addicted, who get hormonal releases whenever they receive likes, receive views, or whenever they see content that they like. It's an immediate dopamine hit. And so I kind of envision it as a seed being planted. Now, how does that seed grow? And that moves me on to my second point, the mental health impact, right? This is kind of where the alarm bells start ringing off. So another thing brought up by an article written by Cyber Psychology is that social media addiction from those previous causes leads to lower self-esteem. And it's because it's so easy to access. A good analogy that I found was written by a master's student at a university in Finland named Fiona Ibrahima. And she said that social media is like fast food, right? You had magazines, books, movies, TV shows initially that are kind of more like sit-down restaurants, where that content takes a longer time to consume. You may have to wait for new releases and that sort of thing. But with social media, you get instant gratification, which is similar to fast food. You sit down, order, boom, food sitting right in your lap. Big Mac, I love Big Macs, French fries, whatever your poison of choice is, so to speak, right, is going to be sitting right there in front of you. And it's similar to social media. And then on top of that, users, because it's so instantaneous, you can immediately see what your friends, compatriots, acquaintances, coworkers, teammates, even celebrities and professionals are doing almost in real time. And that generates a sense of FOMO, pressure, and a distorted reality in that same article written by Cyber Psychology. And this is because sometimes you're sitting in bed, sometimes you're sitting, maybe if you're vulnerable, sitting on the toilet scrolling, and immediately you're seeing people who are in Madrid, who are in Iceland, who are maybe at a professional athlete's sporting event, or they're at a concert. And when the research kind of pulled back the curtain, they found that 3+ hours a day led to a 2 times increase in mental health risk, according to that same Surgeon General advisory from Vivek Murthy, which is incredible. 3 hours makes you 2 times more susceptible to issues like depression and anxiety. And on top of that, 46% of teens reported negative body image issues. And in a new platform that was unnamed when released, they did a study on college students, which is a little bit older than the demographic that I think we should be focusing on more, but I think the statistics are important. They found a 9% increase in depression above baseline and 12% increase in anxiety. And this is a sample size of 350,000 kids, and that's 30 to 40,000 students that reported an increase in those things respectively. And furthermore, this isn't just an isolated issue to first world countries. The World Health Organization said that 11% of teens in 44 countries in Europe, Southeast Asia, North America, and Africa have reported problematic issues with social media. And then corroborated by the research done by Cyber Psychology, Fiona Ibrahima, and in the Surgeon General advisory, those things will eventually lead to those symptoms. And so what do I think the government can do about that? Which leads me to point 3, which is federal intervention. So the Surgeon General initially came up with this kind of initial thought is there are a lot of information gaps. There's not a lot of research done into this yet, just because we are finding out new things every single day because the data is so new. So there are going to be a lot of gaps in the ways that we can fill these. But the things that he pushed for, and I agree with, are stronger data privacy for minors. A lot of teens feel uncomfortable when they're online because they feel like their data is not private. Better enforcement of age/content limits. It's super easy for individuals to find content that is outside of their realm of comprehension, whether that be explicit content, that dark humor, violence, nudity, that sort of thing. And then set youth, health, and safety standards, which kind of goes on top of that furthermore. And then also international cooperation. These are international enterprises that we're dealing with social media, so it can't just be isolated to the United States. It's got to be an international effort to focus on the health and safety and betterment of the individuals who are going to be entering the workforce in the future. And then lastly, what I also think is arguably the most important is ensuring platform transparency between the government and the social media platform in terms of what data is being shared, what data is being hidden, so that the government is aware of what social media platforms are selling, right? So a lot of these kids don't realize is if the product that they're giving is free, what they're selling you as a product. you as the individual, you as the user. And so being able to control that data is super important. And so what does that kind of mean? What can we do as regular individuals? I'm not a government official, but acknowledging the issue is super critical. Acknowledging that there's a problem. Modeling healthy behavior for those youth and minors. Encouraging reporting and balance, and setting boundaries. Understanding what negative social media interactions look like, setting those boundaries so they can then identify what good content, poor content, good interactions, poor interactions look like, so that they can remove themselves from those situations. But then also, I think what's really important is creating tech-free zones for kids to be able to enjoy themselves, to be kids, to set real life relationships with others so they can grow and foster those friendships with each other. And I think that kind of going back, moving away from technology a little bit, will do everyone a little bit of good. Thank you.